the millionaire CEO's twin daughters wouldn't eat anything until the nanny sang that one lullaby. Before we begin, comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And when it's over, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. They were 4 years old, twin girls who hadn't touched a fork since their mother died. 7 nannies had tried to reach them and failed. But then one woman walked through the door wearing glitter sneakers, no degree, and a heart full of stories. No one expected her to last the week. No one expected the cold, grieving billionaire to smile again. And certainly, no one expected the woman with pancake batter on her jeans to become the one who would save them all. The nanny who taught us to smile again. The kitchen was too quiet for a house filled with children. A pale light spilled through the marble windows of the Whitaker mansion. The air smelled faintly of cold toast and untouched mashed potatoes. At the center of the room sat 2 tiny girls, arms crossed, lips sealed, like little statues carved in sorrow. Madison and Chloe, 4 years old, identical curls, identical silence. They hadn't eaten since yesterday. They hadn't really lived since their mother died 5 months ago. At the stove, Mrs. Jenkins, the long-serving housekeeper, stood frozen in defeat, her apron splattered in hope and potatoes. "Just one bite," she whispered, voice cracking. "Please, girls, just one." But the twins stared straight ahead, as if even hunger was too much to feel. That's when the kitchen door creaked open, and in walked a stranger wearing worn-out jeans, a messy bun, and glitter-covered sneakers that squeaked on the tile floor. She held no clipboard, wore no uniform, and smiled like someone who just stepped into a dream. "Morning," she chirped. "I'm starving. Got any coffee in this place?" Jenkins blinked. "You're the new nanny." The woman grinned and stuck out a hand. "Ella Thompson. First day. Let's see if I survive." Madison blinked. Chloe didn't move. They'd seen many nannies, but none had ever asked for coffee before even meeting them. Jenkins lowered her voice. "They haven't eaten in 24 hours. Mr. Whitaker will lose it if they skip another meal." Ella set her hands on her hips and surveyed the silent scene. Then, without asking permission, she opened the fridge like she'd lived there her whole life. Eggs, milk, flour, vanilla, expired whipped cream, which she quietly tossed. "I've got this," she said, and suddenly the kitchen changed. Music played from her phone. The Beatles, Twist and Shout. The scent of vanilla pancakes filled the room, and there she was, dancing with a spatula, like it was a Broadway stage prop. She spun. She flipped a pancake so high it nearly kissed the ceiling. She tucked a pan on her hip, like a castanet, and yelled, "Showtime." The twins didn't mean to giggle, but they did. Chloe clapped her hands. "The pancakes are dancing. I'll only dance if you eat," Ella said, pointing at their plates. The war was over in a heartbeat. 2 tiny forks were lifted, 2 bites taken, and Mrs. Jenkins had to turn away before the tears spilled. Upstairs, Henry Whitaker sat in his glass-walled office. Dark suit, clean-shaven, soul sealed shut. He was reviewing acquisition reports worth millions, but when faint music and giggles drifted up through the marble halls, he paused mid-sentence, his brow furrowed. "Mrs. Jenkins," he spoke into the intercom. "Why is there music in the kitchen?" The voice crackled back, trembling. "The girls are eating, sir. The nanny, she danced with a frying pan." Silence. "She did what?" "Dancing pancakes, sir. And they ate." He hung up. Within moments, Henry was downstairs, expecting chaos. Instead, he found joy. 2 sticky-faced girls giggling at the breakfast table. A woman spinning a pancake on one finger like a basketball, and sunlight that somehow felt warmer than it had all year. "What's going on?" he asked coolly. Ella froze mid-spin. but her smile didn't fade. "Morning, boss man. Want a dancing pancake?" The twins burst out laughing. Henry did not. "You're the new nanny. Flesh, bone, and glitter," she said, pointing at her sneakers. He stared at her for a long moment. She wasn't what he wanted. She wasn't what he planned. But somehow, she was exactly what they needed. What Henry didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman flipping pancakes would soon turn their grief into love and their house into a home. But first, she had to teach them how to smile again. Chapter 1. The Pancake Pact. The scent of vanilla and cinnamon drifted through the Whitaker mansion, like a memory trying to find its way home. It had been so long since the kitchen smelled like anything but reheated silence. Ela flipped another pancake, this time smaller and shaped like a heart. Her sleeves were rolled to her elbows, her hair pulled into a messier than usual bun, and her glitter sneakers were now dusted in flour. The phone on the counter played another Beatles tune, and the skillet sizzled like applause. "Okay, my little skeptics," she said, sliding 2 golden cakes onto a plate. "These ones come with a special rule." Chloe, eyes wide, blinked up from her unicorn-shaped placemat. "What rule?" "You eat 1 bite, and I perform a pancake pirouette. Eat 2, and I give you my secret spell for no nightmare sleep." Madison tilted her head, skeptical. "You have magic." "Of course. Don't let the genes fool you." Ela winked. "I was trained by pancake-wielding fairies." Mrs. Jenkins was standing near the pantry, arms folded across her chest, barely breathing. She'd seen these girls refuse everything from homemade soufflés to hand-fed spoonfuls of applesauce. But now, tiny hands reached for tiny forks. 1 bite, then another. Giggles erupted like bubbles breaking the surface after too long underwater. Ela twirled dramatically in place. Pancake balanced on a spatula. "You've unlocked the next reward tier," she shouted. Chloe clapped her syrup-sticky hands. "You're so silly." "I aim to please." Ela bowed. Then she did something no one else had done in this house for months. She sat at the table, not across from the girls like a hired adult, but with them at their level, close enough to pass butter and hear whispers. "So," she said, "who here likes dragons?" 2 syrupy hands shot into the air. "I thought so." Ela leaned in. "Want to know a secret? I used to feed pancakes to a real one." "You did not," Madison shrieked. "Cross my heart." "What's his name?" Chloe asked, wide-eyed. "Sir Butterflap." The girls burst out laughing so hard, Madison nearly fell out of her chair. Upstairs, Henry Whitaker stood in the hallway, briefcase in hand, half turned toward the front door. He'd meant to leave 20 minutes ago, meant to get to the office early, meant to avoid this, but he couldn't move. The sound of his daughters laughing echoed up the staircase like some foreign language he no longer spoke. He didn't know this sound, hadn't heard it in months. He adjusted his cufflinks, cleared his throat, and pressed the button on his intercom. "Mrs. Jenkins." "Yes, sir." Her voice crackled. "What's going on?" She's feeding them." "Sir." "They're eating." "Yes," and laughing. His hand hovered over the door handle. Then slowly, he turned and walked toward the kitchen instead. When he entered, the room fell quiet. The music stopped. Even the pancakes seemed to freeze mid-flip. "Good morning," Ela said cheerfully, still seated with a syrup bottle in one hand. Henry's gaze swept the room. Sticky fingers, crumbs on the floor, a smudge of jam on Madison's cheek. Chaos, but also peace. The girls looked up at him, not frightened, but surprised. "Daddy," Chloe said cautiously. He nodded. "Girls." Then his eyes landed on Ela. "You're the new nanny." "Correct. No uniform." "I find aprons too restricting." "I see." Silence fell. Then Madison said, "Daddy." Aunt Ela made dragon pancakes. Henry blinked. "Aunt, pancake privileges," Ela said with a shrug. "Comes with the territory." His jaw tensed. Discipline matters in this house. So does appetite, she replied, eyes level. Mrs. Jenkins held her breath. Finally, Henry adjusted his sleeve. Carry on, and he turned to leave. But just before he disappeared through the archway, he looked back. Chloe was resting her head on Illa's arm. Madison was licking syrup from her thumb, and they were smiling. Later that morning, after the girls had gone off for playtime, Illa was cleaning up when she noticed a small piece of paper stuck under Madison's plate. It was a crayon drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands, 2 with matching ponytails, and 1 taller with messy hair and stars on her shoes. Above the picture, in uneven handwriting, were the words, "Our new family." Illa stared at it for a long moment, her hands going still in the soapy water. She felt something shift in her chest, something real, something dangerous, and yet something she couldn't ignore. That night, after dinner and stories, when the girls were tucked into bed, Illa whispered a soft promise into the dark. "I'll stay as long as you need me. I'll stay." But outside their bedroom door, down the long corridor of silence, Henry stood again unmoving, listening, not knowing that for the first time in weeks, his daughters would sleep without nightmares, and not yet ready to admit. It was because of her. They called it a pancake pact, but what they were really making was a new beginning. Chapter 2. A House That Forgot How to Laugh. The late afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows, casting golden stripes across the glossy wooden floors. The mansion always looked beautiful at this hour, clean, still, perfect, but it didn't feel alive. Not yet. Until today. Pillows were scattered across the living room. Curtains had been pulled from their hooks and draped over furniture to become secret tunnels and castle gates. Books were stacked like fort walls, and 1 wooden spoon had been officially declared a magic wand. Madison stood proudly on a couch cushion, wearing a paper crown. "I am Princess Chloe of the Kingdom of Pancake." "I'm Chloe." The real Chloe giggled from beneath a blanket. "She's stealing my name." "No, I'm you, but with royal glitter powers," Madison declared. "I object," Chloe shouted in a mock deep voice. "You may object after your magical nap," Illa said, swooping in with the wooden spoon and tapping each girl gently on the head. By royal decree, both girls collapsed into giggles, rolling on the floor, tangled in silk scarves and imagination. From the hallway, Henry Whitaker stood motionless. His living room, once immaculately sterile, now looked like it had been hit by a preschool tornado. He should have been furious. He should have snapped about cushions on the floor, about sticky fingerprints on the window glass, about the piano bench being used as a dragon cage. But he didn't. He stayed in the shadows and watched. Illa was sitting cross-legged on the rug now, telling a story, and then Princess Chloe raised her wand, pointed it at the mean dragon, and said, she paused dramatically, glancing at the girls. "Tickle attack." They both shouted, tackling her. Her laughter rang out, high and free. It was the sound of someone who didn't care about being judged. The sound of someone who had long ago traded perfection for presence. Henry closed his eyes. That sound used to live here. A few minutes later, he stepped into the room. Illa looked up, surprised. "Mr. Whitaker," she said, brushing her hair out of her face. "Care to play the brave king?" "Your kingdom is under threat." Henry looked at the overturned furniture, at his daughters covered in glitter and stickers. "I just came to grab some papers," he said flatly. "Daddy!" Madison ran to him, wrapping her arms around his leg. "Stay. Aunt Illa does funny voices." He glanced down, startled by her touch. So rare, so unfamiliar now. He hesitated. "Maybe another time." "Sweetheart, Daddy has to work." Her smile flickered, then disappeared, and something inside him twisted. That night, while Illa was cleaning the last of the colored pencils from the floor, Carlos leaned in from the kitchen doorway. "How do you do that?" he asked. "Do what?" He pointed to the faint trail of muddy footprints leading from the back garden to the living room. Make them happy. Get them to eat salad. Laugh like that. Hila shrugged. They're just kids. They needed someone to meet them where they are. They haven't laughed in months. Carlos said, not like that. Not since. He didn't finish. But he didn't need to. The silence was enough. Upstairs, Henry opened a drawer in his desk. Inside was a photograph, faded, edges curled. His wife, Sarah, smiling on the beach, wind in her hair. The girl's only a year old, asleep on her lap. He stared at it for a long time. The weight of memory was heavy, like trying to carry a house on your back. He'd told himself he was doing the right thing, staying busy, hiring help, giving his girls structure. But tonight, when Madison had reached for him, she had called him Daddy with hope in her voice. Hope he wasn't ready to hold. Downstairs, Hila found a second drawing tucked into one of the couch cushions. This time, it was simpler, just 3 stick figures. Madison, Chloe, and a woman with long hair and what looked like sparkles on her shoes. The caption read, Aunt Hila is magic. She placed the paper gently into her notebook and smiled. In this house of marble and rules, all it took was a wooden spoon and a storybook to crack open something sacred. Grief didn't vanish, but laughter had finally come back through the door. Henry didn't yet know that the nanny's greatest skill wasn't storytelling or pancakes. It was reminding people how to feel again, even when they didn't want to. Chapter 3. Saturday in Pajamas. It began with a strange sound. Silence. For the first time in weeks, Henry Whitaker didn't wake to the muffled clatter of pans or the echo of Beatles songs bouncing off marble walls. He sat up in bed, frowning. No music, no giggles, no glitter-covered chaos. Just rain, tapping gently at the windows. He checked his watch. 6:01 a.m. Downstairs was quiet, too quiet. Curiosity, or maybe something closer to worry, pulled him from bed, still in his robe and slippers. He padded down the staircase like a man trespassing in his own home. And then he saw it. The living room had been transformed into a circle of pillows and stuffed animals. A tray of sliced fruit sat untouched in the center, next to a small thermos of coffee, and on the floor, nestled between the twins, both still in unicorn pajamas, was Hila, reading. Her voice shifted pitch with each character, and the girls hung on every word. And the princess used numbers, not magic, to build the tallest castle in all the land. Chloe clapped her hands. She's like me. I like numbers. Exactly, Hila smiled. Henry stood in the doorway, frozen. The scene was so gentle, it felt like something he had once dreamed and forgotten. Good morning, boss, Hila said, without looking up. You're just in time for the story about the princess who saved the whole kingdom with math. Daddy. Madison jumped up and ran to him. Come sit. Aunt Hila's reading the best story ever. Chloe waved excitedly from the floor. It's Saturday. That means pajamas and no work. Henry glanced down at himself, Roby, slippers, and suddenly felt entirely out of place. I have some documents to review, he murmured. Oh, please, Hila said playfully, standing and placing her hands on her hips. It's Saturday. Documents are forbidden. Forbidden. Universal law. She said solemnly. Article 1. No one works when 2 beautiful girls are asking for attention. Article 2. Pajamas are the official dress code. The girls squealed with laughter. I don't wear pajamas during the day, Henry said stiffly. Then today is your grand debut, Hila said with a wink. Girls, launch Operation Daddy Pajamas. Before he could protest, 2 small hands grabbed each of his and started dragging him up the stairs. Girls, he protested, I really don't think. Please, Daddy, Chloe whispered. Aunt Hila said, today is for family. That one word, family, it echoed through him like a forgotten melody. 30 minutes later, he returned not in a suit, not in a tie, but in gray sweatpants and a plain white t-shirt he hadn't worn since college. He looked ridiculous and oddly comfortable. Look at you. Hila laughed when he entered the room. Now you look like a dad. I've always been a dad, he said defensively. Of course, she replied, more softly. But now, you look like a dad who has time. The words hit harder than he expected. What should we do first? Hila asked, clapping her hands. Build something? Chloe shouted. Draw, Madison added. Have coffee, Henry muttered. Perfect. Hila grinned. First coffee. Then each of you gets to do your favorite thing. And in the end, we show off what we made. So they did. Henry sat cross-legged on the floor, while Chloe surrounded herself with Legos. I'm building a sadness-fighting robot, she explained seriously. See? These are the tickle arms. Madison sprawled out beside him with colored pencils, her brow furrowed in concentration. What are you drawing? He asked. It's a surprise, but I'll make one for you too. Daddy! You will? Yep. What makes you happy? Henry paused. No one had asked him that in a very long time. Draw. What makes you happy? He said finally. She nodded and got to work. Hila sat beside him, watching quietly. How are you feeling? She asked softly. Strange, he admitted. Like I should be doing something more productive. It'll pass, she said. That itch to control something. It always passes. Henry looked down at his wrist. He wasn't wearing a watch, but he'd been touching it anyway. Hila smiled knowingly. You're doing the most productive thing possible, she said. You're remembering how to be with them. A few minutes later, Madison stood and handed him her finished drawing. 4 stick figures. Chloe, Madison, Hila, and he blinked. Where's Daddy? He asked. Oh, Madison said innocently. I forgot. You're always working. So I couldn't draw you. The words slammed into his chest. But I can add you now, she said cheerfully. How should I draw you? In your suit or pajamas? Henry stared at the page. 3 smiling people. He wasn't in it. In pajamas? He whispered. Draw me in pajamas. Madison grinned and grabbed a brown crayon. When she handed it back, the 4th figure stood beside the others, holding their hands. A tall man in sweatpants. Now our family is complete, she said proudly. Henry folded the drawing and slipped it into his pocket with trembling fingers. Thank you, sweetheart, he whispered. It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever seen. In a world built by money, time was the one thing Henry Whitaker never thought he could afford. Until a little girl drew him into her family with nothing but crayons and grace. He wore pajamas for them, but what they gave him was something he didn't know he'd lost. A place, a picture, a name that didn't just mean father. It meant belonging. Chapter 4. When Grandma comes to dinner, the silver gleamed like it hadn't been touched in years. 6 wine glasses, 4 polished forks, crystal water goblets that caught the chandelier's light just so. Henry adjusted his cufflinks, sighed, and looked toward the grand mahogany doors. She'll be here any minute, he murmured. Are we supposed to bow? Hila asked behind him. He turned, surprised. She stood in the hallway, wearing a navy dress that had clearly been borrowed. Too tight at the shoulders, a little long at the hem. Her hair, normally in a messy bun, was smoothed down in gentle waves. You look different, he said. Is that your rich person way of saying I tried? He smirked. It's my human way of saying you clean up nice. Before she could reply, the butler opened the door and in swept Victoria Whitaker. Tailored coat, cashmere gloves, and a scent that screamed Chanel and silent judgment. Her eyes were sharp enough to cut glass. Henry, she said, kissing his cheek with precision. The girls in the garden with Hila, he replied. Her eyebrow twitched. Ah! The help. Henry paused. The nanny. Dinner began tense. The twins bounced in, cheeks rosy, and hugged their father with flour-covered hands. Daddy helped us bake dessert. Madison beamed. Victoria blinked, aghast. In the kitchen, with his hands, Chloe added proudly. Victoria's smile was brittle. How charming. Ila entered last, carrying the casserole dish, like a soldier, presenting peace. I hope everyone likes enchiladas, she said cheerfully. Victoria froze. We don't eat that, she murmured. Henry cleared his throat. We do now. The meal unfolded like a chess match. Victoria asked about the girls' education, their behavior, their routines. Ila answered kindly. Casually, she shared how Madison loved puzzles, how Chloe was afraid of the dark but brave with bugs. And what exactly is your educational background, Miss Thompson? Victoria asked, slicing into her food without looking up. I studied early childhood development, Ila said carefully, at an accredited university, community college. Then life, Victoria repeated, letting the word sit like something sour. Henry's jaw tensed. She's qualified, he said quietly. She's entertaining. Victoria replied, there's a difference. By dessert, the tension was thick. Ila served her homemade cinnamon bread pudding with whipped cream smiles drawn on top. Chloe bounced in her seat. I helped with the raisins, Madison added, and Daddy licked the spoon. Victoria put down her fork. I see this house has turned into a circus, Mother Henry began. But Victoria turned to Ila. Do you know who you are, Miss Thompson? You're a phase, a warm breeze, temporary comfort. But children don't need entertainers. They need structure, education, a future. And this, she gestured around the table, is not how it's done in our family. The silence that followed was heavy. Ila didn't respond with sarcasm or fire. She simply looked at the girls, then back at Victoria. I'm not here to replace anyone, she said softly. Not their mother, not their family. I'm here because they were hurting and someone needed to sit on the floor and hurt with them until they healed. Victoria blinked. Even Henry didn't breathe. I know I'm not your version of qualified, ma'am, but I'm the only one they've let braid their hair in 5 months. And last week, they laughed in their sleep. She stood quietly. That's why I'm here. Victoria reached for her purse. I'll be going now, she said coldly. Henry stood. Mother, she turned, hand on the door. One day, you'll see what kind of damage this woman has done. Encouraging chaos and emotions and barefoot mornings. I expected better from you. Henry took a breath, then walked to Ila's side. You expected me to protect our image? He said. I'm protecting our daughters. Victoria stared at him, then turned and left without another word. That night, Henry found Ila in the kitchen, washing dishes in silence. I'm sorry about that, he said. She's your mother. She's not you. Ila looked up, startled. Henry nodded toward the pudding dish. Best dessert I've had in years. She smiled weakly. The girls helped. I know, he said. I could taste the raisins. They both laughed. A little too long, a little too easily, and something unspoken passed between them. Not all storms are loud. Some come wearing pearls and speaking in polished tones. But love, real love, never needs to raise its voice. It just stands quietly and stays. In choosing Ila, Henry hadn't just defended her. He'd chosen the family he wanted to become over the one he was born into. Chapter 5. The secret box beneath the tree. The sun that afternoon was soft, the kind that made you slow down just to feel it on your face. It shimmered through the leaves of the old oak tree in the Whitaker garden, scattering gold across the grass like spilled glitter. Ila sat on a blanket with the girls, their sketchbooks open, juice boxes tipped on their sides. Let's draw a place that makes you feel safe, she said gently. Chloe drew a castle in the clouds. Madison drew a tree, this tree, with something small hidden underneath. What's that? Ela asked. Madison looked up, eyes wide. Can we show her? Chloe bit her lip, then nodded slowly. Okay. They stood, grabbed her hands, and led her to the base of the oak. There, beneath a mossy stone, they pulled up a small wooden box. Inside, folded like secrets, were papers, drawings, tiny toys, and letters. Letters written in uneven crayon handwriting. To Mommy. Ela's heart caught in her throat. The girls sat cross-legged, carefully unfolding the notes. Chloe read one aloud. Dear Mommy, I wore the yellow dress today. The one you said made me look like the sun. Daddy didn't notice, but Aunt Ela smiled and said I was glowing. Madison added, We miss your pancakes. Ela's are good, but not the same. We're saving you one in case you come back. Tears gathered in Ela's eyes. She reached out and gently held Madison's hand. Sweetheart, she began, voice trembling. I think your mommy reads every single letter. But she can't come back. Baby. The air shifted. Chloe's lip quivered. She's just sleeping, she whispered. No. Chloe, Mommy went to heaven, Madison said softly. I heard Jenkins say so. Chloe looked down, but I prayed every night. I thought, if I was really good. Ela wrapped her arms around both girls. The box sat between them, heavy, with heartbreak and childhood hope. I don't know all the rules up there, she said, voice cracking, but I do know this. Your mommy is proud of you, of how brave you are, of how you still laugh and dance and draw sunshine on cloudy days. From the second-floor window, Henry watched. He had stepped back from a call when he saw the three of them under the tree. The box in the girls' laps. When he realized what they were reading, what Ela was saying, a cold panic gripped his chest. She was talking about Sarah. He moved quickly. By the time he reached the backyard, the girls were giggling again. Chloe had tried to put a flower crown on Ila's head, and it kept falling into her eyes. He didn't smile. Can I speak with you? He asked Ela. His tone clipped. Ila's smile faded. She nodded, following him a few steps away. What were you doing? He asked. Quiet but tense. I was comforting them. You told them Sarah isn't coming back. Yes, gently. They found their letters. They asked. His voice dropped, sharp and cold. That's not your place. She took a breath. They're grieving. Henry, they need stability, structure, not philosophical comfort from a woman who's been here 5 weeks. Ela's heart twisted. I didn't overstep. I only told them what they already knew, but were afraid to say aloud. You had no right. The air between them felt like glass about to crack. They asked me, she said quietly. I just didn't lie to them. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for a second, something in his face broke, and then he stepped back. I want you to stick to your job, Miss Thompson. Activities, meals, playtime. Leave the emotional parenting to me. She nodded once, but her chest felt hollow. Without another word, he turned and walked back inside, the door clicking shut behind him. That night, Ela found the little box sitting beside the girls' bed. They had placed it there, just beneath the window, where the moonlight touched the corner of the rug. She tucked the blanket around Chloe, kissed Madison's forehead, and whispered, You're not alone. You never were. But when she left the room, her own hands were shaking, because for the first time, she wasn't sure if her heart would survive staying in this house or leaving it. Grief lives in secret places, in crayon letters and shoe boxes, and sometimes telling the truth isn't about being right. It's about holding a child's hand while their world reshapes itself. She had told the truth, but it cost her something, because healing a family doesn't mean you'll be invited to stay. Chapter 6. Runaways and lullabies. It started with a scream, not a loud one, not a violent one, just a child's scream, the kind that carries through open windows and turns a house to ice. Ela. Mrs. Jenkins called from the hallway. The girls, they're gone. 30 minutes earlier, Ela had finished folding Chloe's laundry when she found the note, scrawled in purple marker and glitter pen. We're finding Mommy. Don't worry. We took snacks. Love. Pancake. Her blood ran cold. She sprinted to the garden gate, wide open. Carlos's truck peeled out of the driveway in seconds. They know the trail behind the greenhouse. Ela said, breathless. I told them a story once about fireflies there. I didn't think they'd... Henry stood stone still by the fountain. Why would they run off like that? Because they're confused, she said. Because they're grieving and brave and 4 years old. His jaw clenched. You told them she wasn't coming back. He said, I told them the truth. She shot back, and you punished me for it. I protected them. No, Henry, you protected yourself. They found the girls under the willow tree by the creek, clutching hands, blankets wrapped like capes, a half-eaten bag of goldfish crackers between them. When Ela ran to them, they didn't cry. They looked guilty and sad. We weren't trying to scare you, Madison said. We were just going to wait by the water, Chloe whispered. Maybe Mommy would show up if we were quiet enough. Henry stood a few steps behind, heartbreaking. He saw it then, how small they really were, how much they'd been holding in, and how this woman, this nanny, was the only one who ever knelt to hold it with them. Back at the house, Ela tucked them into bed silently. No stories tonight. No Beatles songs, just lullabies, hummed low, almost prayer-like. She stroked their hair and whispered, You are safe. You are loved. Mommy may be gone, but love like hers never leaves. They fell asleep, cheek to cheek, arms wrapped around their stuffed bunnies. Henry waited for her in the hallway. I'm sorry, he said. Ela looked at him. I should have trusted you, he added. You were the only one who told them the truth, the only one who didn't run away from their sadness. She nodded. Quiet. They ran to find what you won't talk about. I know. A pause. I can't do this without you, he said finally. I wasn't asking you to, she replied. They stood there a moment longer. Then she turned to go, but he reached for her hand, not to stop her, but to say thank you with nothing but touch. And for the first time, she didn't pull away. Sometimes children run away, not because they don't feel loved, but because they want to find the piece of love everyone's too scared to talk about. And sometimes, the bravest lullaby is truth whispered in the dark. Henry had built a fortune to protect himself from pain, but no vault is strong enough to hold grief. It was Ella her truth, her softness, her stubborn heart who brought his daughters back, and maybe brought him back too. Chapter 7. The rainstorm that changed everything. The sky cracked open just after noon, not with thunder, but with a silence so heavy it made the air feel like it had weight. The girls had gone down for their nap. Jenkins had retreated to the laundry room. The house was still. Henry stood at the window of his office, staring down at the garden. Rain tapped against the glass, soft and rhythmic. He saw Illa there. She hadn't noticed the storm starting. She was barefoot, standing beneath the tree, just still, her head tilted back, arms at her sides, eyes closed, letting the rain fall. He didn't know why he moved, only that within seconds, he was downstairs, pushing open the back door and stepping into the downpour. She turned when she heard him. He was already soaked. Are you all right? He asked. She didn't move, just looked at him, water streaking down her cheeks like tears she didn't have to explain. Why do you do it? He asked. Do what? Stay. Her shoulders rose, then fell. Because they need someone who isn't afraid to feel everything, she whispered. Because you might be rich in dollars, but this house, it's starving for warmth. He said nothing, just stared at her, standing there in the rain. In jeans, no shoes, heart open, not the nanny, not the help, just her, and something inside him cracked. He stepped closer, and this time, he didn't speak. He reached for her hand. They stood there for a long time, not speaking. Raindrops danced on the leaves above them. A breeze swept through the garden, sending petals fluttering like confetti. And for the first time since Sarah died, Henry didn't feel like a man trapped in the past. He felt like someone standing on the edge of something new. Later, Ela made hot chocolate with cinnamon and extra whipped cream. She poured 2 mugs and set one in front of him. "You don't like whipped cream," she said, smiling. "How do you know that? I'm observant or psychic." She laughed, just tuned in. "A beat. Why did you really come out there?" she asked. Henry stared into the steam rising from his cup. "Because I didn't want you to stand in the storm alone." She looked at him carefully. "You've been doing that for a long time," she said. "Haven't you?" He didn't answer, but she already knew. That night, Henry stood at the door of the girls' room. Madison was asleep, her cheek resting on Chloe's shoulder. A single book lay between them. He didn't knock. He just watched. And then he turned, walked downstairs, and found Ela by the window, looking at the tree. "I never thought I'd say this," he said quietly. "But I don't want this to be temporary." She looked at him, the words hanging there. Not quite love, but more than duty. He stepped closer. "Stay," he said. "Because of the girls?" she asked. He shook his head. "Because of me. Love doesn't always begin with a kiss. Sometimes it begins in a storm, when someone finally walks out into the rain, not to save you, but to stand beside you." Soaked and silent, for the first time, Henry didn't want control. He just wanted her, not because she fixed things, but because she felt them, and that changed everything. Chapter 8. The Lie That Almost Ended It All. It started with a manila envelope, thick, sealed, left on the marble counter like a threat disguised as mail. Ela picked it up without thinking. No return address. Curious, she opened it, and the world tilted. Inside, a background report on her. Her full name, her school, her mother's criminal history, the foster homes, the bankruptcy, the therapy note from 6 years ago. She couldn't breathe. She knew what this was. A warning, a message. Henry was in his office when she walked in, the file clutched in both hands like a weapon. "You had me investigated?" she asked. Voice tight. He stood from his chair, clearly caught off guard. What is that?" "You know what it is. I didn't order that." "Then who did?" she demanded. "Because this has every piece of my life I tried to leave behind, laid out like a police report." "Ela, I swear." The door swung open, and there stood Victoria. "Oh," she said smoothly. "I see." She found it. Ela's throat went dry. "You sent this?" Victoria stepped in, calm as always. "I protect this family. That includes vetting anyone with access to the girls." "She's not anyone," Henry said sharply. Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Then why was her file so easy to find?" "She has nothing to hide," he said, then faltered. Looked at Ela. She was already backing away. "I'm sorry," Henry said quietly. "I didn't ask her to, but you didn't stop her either." Ela said, voice breaking. "You let her dig into my life like I was some kind of threat. You have to understand." "I do." She cut in. "You'll never fully trust someone like me. Someone who doesn't come from glass windows and private schools." He stepped forward. "That's not true." She stepped back. Tears filled her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I let myself believe this was different, that you were different, but you just stood there and let your mother treat me like a liability." "Ela, you know what hurts most," she whispered. not the file, not my past being dragged out like it's shameful. What hurts is that you didn't fight for me. She walked out the front door without another word. The sky was clear this time. No rain, no goodbye from the girls, just silence. Henry stood in the entryway. Long after the door shut, Mrs. Jenkins came from the kitchen, wiping her hands. "She gone?" she asked gently. He nodded once. "She made this place feel alive again," Jenkins said softly. "And you let fear send her away." Henry said nothing, because he knew he hadn't just lost a nanny. He'd lost the one person who saw the cracks in him and stayed anyway. That night, he found a drawing tucked into the girls' storybook. Stick figures again. But this time, Ela wasn't in it. Just the three of them. And Henry realized the girls already knew. Sometimes, the lies we believe about ourselves come from the people who love us least. And sometimes, we let those lies win. She didn't slam the door. She didn't scream. She simply walked away. Because when you give someone your whole heart and they hesitate, you learn how to leave with grace. Chapter 9. The Grand Gesture That Wasn't About Winning Her Back. It had been 9 days since Isla left. The mansion was quieter now, but not in the peaceful way. The kitchen didn't hum. The curtains stayed drawn. The twins asked less and less about bedtime stories. Even Jenkins had stopped playing music in the mornings. And Henry hadn't touched his piano once. He hadn't come for her. Not because he didn't want to, but because deep down, he knew chasing her for himself would be selfish. Ela didn't need grand gestures. She needed proof that someone saw her, all of her, and still stayed. On the 10th day, he finally knocked on her door. It was a walk-up in a part of town he hadn't visited in years. Her name was written on the mailbox in black Sharpie. A potted succulent sat crooked beside the mat. He waited in a suit that felt too expensive for this hallway. She opened the door, surprised. Her hair was up, no makeup. The same threadbare t-shirt she probably slept in. "Henry," she said, stunned. "Why are you here?" He didn't smile, didn't flirt, just held out a folder. "What's this?" "My resignation from Whitaker Holdings." Her eyes widened. "You're quitting?" "No," he said. "I'm starting over." Inside her small apartment, he sat on a lumpy couch while she made tea. The kettle screamed between them. "I don't understand," she finally said. He sipped the tea too hot, too sweet, and exactly what he needed. "You told me once this house was starving for warmth," he said. "You were right. You're really leaving your own company." "No," he repeated. "I'm stepping back. A year off. I've handed operations to Jenkins and my board. Carlos is helping with logistics." She stared. "I can't fix what I broke," he said, "but I can stop being the man who let fear speak louder than love." Tears touched her lashes. "And what do you want from me?" "Nothing," he said. That stopped her. "I didn't come to win you back," he continued. "I came to say, I see you. I get it now. And I'm grateful you ever walked into our lives." He pulled a drawing from his coat pocket, one of Madison's stick figures again. This time, Ela, standing under the tree, a crown on her head, labeled, "Our Brave Queen." "I found this in the girls' art box," he said. "They haven't drawn since you left." She reached for the paper with trembling hands. "I never wanted you to be someone I needed," he said. "But you are, and I'll never ask you to shrink yourself again, just to stay in someone else's story." Silence. Rain tapped gently on the window. "I'm not coming back," she said after a while. He nodded. "I know, but not because I don't love them." He looked up. "I just need to see if I'm more than what people let me be." She whispered, "More than a helper, more than a solution." "I hope you find it," he said. "I hope you do too." He stood to leave. At the door, she touched his arm, soft, grateful. "You did come," she said. He nodded. "Not for me, for you." Sometimes the grandest gesture is the one that asks for nothing in return, just the humility to say, I was wrong, and you deserved better. He didn't get the girl that night. He didn't even ask. But for the first time, Henry Whitaker walked away, not as a CEO, but as a man finally willing to change. Chapter 10. The kind of love that doesn't need a title. The soil was soft between her fingers. Ela knelt in the garden bed, the early April air cool on her skin. She'd started volunteering here last week, teaching kids how to plant spinach, chase ladybugs, lose themselves in something real. No salary, no schedule, just soil, sun, healing. She was learning to be enough, not for anyone else, just for her. It had been 4 weeks since she last saw the mansion. Since that conversation, since Henry placed the folder on her table and didn't ask for anything in return, she hadn't heard from him since. Until now, a small voice behind her, Miss Ela. She turned. 2 girls stood at the garden gate, one in polka dots, one in overalls with a crooked braid, Madison and Chloe. She froze. Behind them, Carlos waved from the car, and standing a few steps back, like he wasn't sure if he was welcome, was Henry. The girls ran to her. Madison hugged her waist. Chloe clutched a tiny flower pot. We planted something for you, Chloe said proudly. Ela knelt down. What is it? Hope, Madison whispered. She looked at the pot. Just a bit of soil, no sprouts yet, but something was growing. Something always was. She stood, heart pounding. Henry stepped closer. I didn't tell them to come, he said. They asked. I believe you. They've been saving stories to tell you. I've been saving space for them. A pause. He glanced down. I'm not in a suit. No, she smiled. You're not. I've been working at the girls' school. Board stuff. Policy changes. More art. More music. Less pressure. She raised a brow. The billionaire in sneakers. He shrugged, trying to walk slower these days. She laughed. That's new? He looked at her. Quiet now. I didn't come to ask, he said. I know. I just came to show up. She nodded. That's new too, she whispered. They sat with the girls in the dirt, planting beans, pulling weeds, drawing stick figures in the mud. Henry didn't say much, but he didn't leave. Later, as the sun dipped low, the girls ran ahead to the car. Henry lingered. You were right. You know, he said. About what? You don't need a title. She turned to him. Not nanny. Not girlfriend. Not anything else. You were home, Ela, even when you didn't know it. She blinked back tears. I don't know what comes next, he added. I just know. I want to show up for it. For you. For them. She placed the flower pot in his hand. It's not much, she said, but something's growing. He looked at the soil and smiled. The strongest kind of love doesn't announce itself. It doesn't ask for titles. It just arrives and stays. Even after everything breaks. They didn't kiss. No music swelled. But 2 little girls giggled in the back seat. And a woman stood beside a man who'd finally learned how to be present. And sometimes, that's the only kind of love that matters. The mansion never went back to being what it was. There were still business calls, still board meetings, still polished shoes and silver spoons. But sometimes, on Tuesday nights, you'd hear Beatles music echoing through the halls, and if you looked out the kitchen window, you'd see a man in sweatpants flipping pancakes while 2 little girls decorated them with whipped cream and sprinkles. And somewhere in the background, you'd see her, no longer the nanny, not even the love interest, just a woman who stayed long enough to be seen. Because in the end, this was never about saving someone. It was about showing up, again and again, even after the storm. Even when the hurt feels bigger than the house itself, even when love doesn't come with a title or a ring, just a quiet promise a promise to plant something and wait until it blooms. Tell us, what are your thoughts on this story? Did it move you? Did it remind you of someone you love? Or maybe someone you miss? Leave a comment below and rate it from 0 to 10. We read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss our latest stories. Click here to watch more now. There's always more love to find and more healing to begin.